Hello and welcome to this latest episode of the Hessian Scrum. Joining me today is Carolina Perez from Castrator, who are releasing their brand new album on the 25th of August, if I remember, Coronation of the Grotesque. So, very happy to have you here while, you're in the middle of your promo campaign.
Thank you so much for having us. Me.
Yeah. So, for all those interested, I got to review the album. It's really good. There's a lot to unpack. The band has a pretty crazy evolution in like last, what, 11 years that you've been going together now.
Yes.
So let's start with the Coronation of the Grotesque. So, what was your impetus for making this album?
So we always wanted to continue writing, but when we were done touring, when we did the last tour with Cattle Decap and Immolation and Sanguisuga Bug and um Cattle Immolation, Sanguisuga Bug and us, and sorry, we were just like, man, we want to keep touring, we want to keep writing, we want to keep doing this. So it was a big push for us to continue the the journey.
Yeah. Because I feel like this album really represents like what you wanted to accomplish with the kind of style change that you had on Defiled into Oblivion and like the kind of mix of influences you have. Like it really all comes together here.
Yeah, well, this album was a very different approach. For the thing with Defile in Oblivion is, I mean, the band it's actually been 12 years. It's been alive for 12 years, and it took us like 8 years to actually release our first album. We did release an EP, but it's not an album.
Hmm.
And it was just a lot of different um, goals that the past lineup wanted, and with this lineup we all wanted the same thing. And then also we approached it from the point of view that only Robin and I, because we're the founders of the band, we wrote all the riffs, we wrote everything, so then it's less, I guess, how would you say it, less um conflicted, it's more direct.
Yeah, because I mean, I think the common theme, between all your works, from like the first demo to No Victim EP, etc., is that it's like it's all based on you and Robin's playing, like the rhythms that like
Yeah.
that's the main thing that, and then so did you, because Sarah's the newcomer, did you let her in on the songwriting process, or was it just you and Robin?
It was just me and Robin. Sarah came in pretty late in the. Actually, she came in like as the songs were all done, but she did bring amazing tonalities, her solos. Like, it was just the basic structures for the songs, and then she brought her flavor to the band, and she recorded all the guitars. So that adds to the flavor of the current sound.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because you started off as a brutal death metal band, right? Well, except maybe the first song, Honor Killings, which was more in line with traditional death metal, but the other four songs are all very brutal death, and it seems that you keep it, but you want to do more than brutal death. Why?
Yeah, we always wanted to do old school death metal. Brutal death metal was more of it's just like a phase, if you might call it, or because we're trying to like find our sound. And I do come, I'm originally from Colombia, but I moved to New York City when I was 15, and then suffocation and internal bleeding, pyrexia, like all those were huge influences for me. So I wanted to keep that, and those bands have a little bit of both too: old school death metal, brutal death metal. So it's like in the threshold there.
Yeah, I mean, also what I really appreciated on Coronation of the Grotesque is just the weird kind of melodies that you have. I think Deviant Miscreant has this almost kind of like early Septic Flesh, very gothic, very romantic, kind of mid part and everything.
Yeah, we wanted to make sure with this album that we left a lot of room for breathing. Like, melodies are important. Like, music has to breathe. It doesn't necessarily take away from the heaviness. Actually, sometimes that's even heavier when you let the music breathe and you let a note just ring out. Sometimes too much saturation is not good. You know.
Yeah.
And that
Definitely.
comes
And
with that comes with experience, like, trying to find your sound and all that.
yeah, I mean, you and Robin have like tremendous amount of experience over the years. You've both played in other bands. I know Robin's been a roadie as well for a very long time as well.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah, she's always on the road, man. She's I don't know if you know this, but back in the like early 90s, she was in an all-female death metal band called Demonomacy. And if you don't know it, you should check it out. It's crazy good.
damn, I'll definitely have to check them out as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Demonomacy.
Demon Odyssey. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, they played in like the original Milwaukee Death Metal Fest.
Oh, damn.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. She goes way back and she's always kept her, you know, her true self.
because I mean, because it took you a while because you've been around. Why the idea of an all-female death metal band?
Cause the metal scene is pretty saturated with men and like, growing up, it's like you go to shows and there was barely any girls ever, if in the audience, almost never on stage. So you want to see yourself represented, right?
Hmm.
Like, like as a young girl, I was always looking out for other females that I could look up to and it's not about like a gender, but it is because like you want to, for especially for younger kids, you want them to be able to see themselves like being able to do something. It's not limited. Even though at the end of the day you always limit yourself. It's just, it's so it was like important for us like to kind of bring a fresh um thing to the scene, even though it was happening all over the world. It was kind of like a weird um effect that was going on.
Yeah, definitely. And so, I think everyone kind of knew about you because, this was a time where a lot of people were kind of like looking down on a lot of the death metal lyrics. It was not that it was even like misogynistic as people were saying, but it was like pure like kind of weird mix between gore and pornography. It's like
Yeah,
th-
but all against women. Like
ex-
yeah, it was that was also getting old. That was another reason why we wanted to create something that was like flipping it. Like, okay, well, yeah, we'll sing horror movie style lyrics from a women's perspective. You know, like, um, what was the name of that movie? I Spit on Your Grave.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
fantastic movie. Yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
original.
yeah, yeah. Kind of like that.
Yeah.
It's like a different perspective where everyone's like, oh, that was not like the theme that we're used to.
Because, but then, one thing I've noticed with your lyrics, it's not just like mindless violence against men. Because, from the other perspective, what annoyed me with, brutal death metal and deathcore in the mid 2000s was that it was a very sexualized take, not showing
Mhm.
the horror, but like a sort of extreme form of pornography made for themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas your lyrics, it seems like one, you're talking about things that are very real, female circumcision, which is practiced and people would be shocked, but I think 50, 60 countries to this
Mhm.
day.
Yeah, it still happens in some countries in Africa today,
Yeah, exactly.
in Middle East.
Yeah,
Yeah,
various things. And you talk about these crazy things. I mean, I think it was on the Defiled into Oblivion, the first song, the Da'wah of
the
Yusuf
South Side.
Azai.
Yeah,
Oh my God, like
yeah. Well,
those. Yeah,
yeah. We try to definitely have meaning and connect with lyrics. It just can't be just mindless. Like if we're angry about something, then it's gonna be better because it has feeling. So it's the same with Coronation of the Grotesque. We write about all kinds of social issues happening. There's one song that's about Amini, the woman that was killing around for not wearing her hijab.
oh yes.
Yeah. And same with Dawa. It's just like very angry circumstances, and we can't just stay quiet. We have to speak up, and music is an art form, and death metal, if anything, is an amazing art form that allows us to speak more freely and to like stay dark and stay true. We don't have to like mask anything up.
Yeah, and even when it's about, violence on men, you have a few songs about, castration,
Yeah,
even the latest one, second songs, I Am Eunuch. But I always noticed that there was one song about on the previous album that castrations for
yeah,
art,
Yeah, the
And
castrati, the it's voices of Everato.
yeah, and
Yeah,
you know you're not celebrating it. You know, it's not the kind of very the cliche people have view people have of feminism, but it's like these poor boys were like a part of their humanity was removed.
horrifying,
Yeah.
horrifying. Like we have such dark like history as humans. It's and yeah, just to shine a little light on the history of not just the good but the bad and like where we come from, and not to forget that we are barbaric at the end of the day. We still are.
'Cause, I feel like, your kind of your brand of feminism is a lot more aligned with European feminism, right? Which is like, we're not gonna, we're gonna denounce the horrors, we're not gonna offer solutions, but we're gonna show you the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, American feminism is a lot more kind of empowerment, trying to kind of reverse the situations, give more place to women, right? Whereas, the European stuff is like, the world is fucked up. There is some sort of patriarchy, and you have to learn how to navigate within those confines.
Well, like, patriarchy has been the ruling um theme for hundreds of years. So it's like in our DNA to like know how to navigate that, or learn how to navigate that. And the United States is a pretty young country. It's very different. Europe is a lot older. So um, comparing, it's only like 250 years, 200 some years old, and so like here the history of women's rights is very different from Europe. You know
Hmm.
where Europe had queens before the United States was even a country, So it's very different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you think about the greatest British rulers. The British probably had the biggest empire, and who
Mm-hmm.
were the greatest British rulers? Women.
Mm-hmm.
Elizabeth
Queen
First,
Elizabeth, yeah,
Victoria. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Other all other countries as well.
The United States hasn't even had a female president, so it's a very different mentality. You're right there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, also one thing I didn't know because I thought Sarah did all the solos, but you had a lot of guest
Mm-hmm.
guitarists on the latest one. I think Gary Holt.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
so it was the same in Defiled in Oblivion. We always try to bring good friends into our album, and like we we are a band, like I said, we embrace old school death metal, and we don't forget where we come from. And if we can have like people that actually influenced us be part of the new, bring the old to the new, that's like our thing. So like Bob Vinya for Immolation, huge, influence for us. um Obituary, huge influence for us. Deicide, forget it. We
yeah.
are heavily influenced by Deicide. Oh my goodness, who's this guy, and
He's,
why is he wearing a cone?
because he's got a foot infection and he keeps licking his paw,
Oh, what's his name?
buddy.
Buddy.
Yeah.
Hi, Buddy. Poor baby.
Yeah, so
Oh.
he was just begging for hugs right now and licking my foot, so I put him on me.
Well, thank you for bringing him into the into the interview.
He's used to it.
Hopefully it's not because he was castrated.
No, never. I will never, ever. My animals are all
Oh,
yeah.
well, sometimes it's a good thing when like like they're stray, and they I don't know, sometimes like not to keep bringing poor like kittens and dogs. Like some poor countries have so many, like such overpopulation, and like strays, like for like in South America, forget it. Everywhere you go, there's dogs everywhere.
Yeah. And they always group up the stray dogs. I've seen it in quite a few countries as well.
Yeah, yeah, they're pack animals.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, with artists, Dan Gonzalez from Possessed, he actually helped us produce our last album. He's a really good friend of the band, so we want him to keep working with us. And when we asked him, he was like, "Hell yeah!" We were like, "Oh," because like they're like masters of their craft, and they bring such an intense sound, even if it's just a little like sprinkle of their taste is there.
Mm. Yeah. Because
But
I mean,
but Sarah did write 4 of the solos of the album.
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean her style is still very, very good. I was surprised at how good she is at kind of like um kind of interpreting different things. There's like a very kind of, typical Slayer dive bomb abuse, but there's more
Yeah.
melodic solos as well.
Well, she has a very big black metal background, so that translates very nicely with what we're doing. I never expected that, but it's awesome.
That's good. So when you and Robin write the songs, is it just you two in a room? Do you pick up the guitar? Well, how do you write the songs with Robin?
So it's a really weird approach because we live in different states. She lives in Florida and I live in Ohio now. But so for the beginning, we locked ourselves. We actually went to the Cannibal Corpse practice room. They let us use it, and we were there for like 3 days, just writing riffs with drums, basic stuff, you know. And then I just came home, and then I wrote guitars for everything, and wrote down basic structures, programmed drums for, we didn't write all 9 songs. We wrote like 4 songs. Then I came home and I wrote the rest. And it's a lot of emailing back and forth, her saying, yay, nay, at this, it sounds good. Like we're both equal, so we respect each other's opinion and we try to work together that way.
I what I like is like it feels like you two have played together along for a long time because the rhythms and the breakdowns are very interesting. You know, it's one of the hardest things to do, I think, in extreme music is to have a good breakdown that doesn't sound like, I don't know, Liege of and Veracity breakdown, you know, something like
Yeah.
really
Yeah.
stereotypical.
Dun 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 dun. I
Yeah.
love that. I that's like one of the best breakdowns. I love. Actually, I just did a Legion of Veracity cover. It's coming out with Chaos Rising. I don't know if you've heard of that project. It's actually from France.
I might have.
Yeah, it's like an all female like world collaboration. So we did that. So it's gonna come out, I guess, in a couple months. But it's that song.
Nice.
Yeah. But no, it's because Robin and I love breakdowns. We're all about the breakdowns and the mosh pit. We're the rhythm session.
Yeah. And then now I think the major thing on kind of like defiled in no, sorry, Coronation of the Grotesque is that you're using you're using a lot more kind of very early 90s Morbid Angel kind of like tremolo pick death metal riffs, but you're not doing like what I really hate about when a lot of modern bands do it. It's just very simple, first 4 frets, little variation, but the way you do it, like I can actually remember those riffs.
Yeah. Well, it's because there's a lot of other death metal bands that are hugely influential for me, at least, like Solstice, Malevolent Creation, you
Yes.
know, like Rob Barrett, like Phil Fasciana, like those kinds of like death metal riffs are like for me the best. Not to say that Morbid isn't the best. Morbid is the best, but there's a lot of other bands that were hugely influential for us, and I try to like remember that style of writing as well. And yeah, I mean, like for me, when I come up with a riff, like you have to be angry. You have to love death metal. You have to know, like, you want to hit bang, or do you want to like, what do you want this riff to like um reflect from you? So like the song that just came out, Covenant of Deceit, that the like that was like I was just thinking like thrashy,
Yeah.
just headbang all the way, and just like that. Just I'm not thinking of where on the fret my fingers are gonna be. I'm thinking more about like the feeling of what I'm trying to reflect.
Exactly. A quick question. So, Ten Commandments or Retribution?
Retribution.
Yeah, of course. I
Yeah,
think we all agree.
Retribution. Alex Marquez is one of the biggest drum influences for me. Mwah.
I'm guessing you're a big Monstrosity fan because when I think
Huge,
about yeah, I
huge.
think that's a big influence on you. I just noticed. Let's talk about the production. I like the way the album sounds, but I think my only little issue was that because I think your drum performance is great, but that the drums were a little bit too overproduced for my taste.
Yeah. Well, that's unfortunately, it's really hard to have natural sounding or like big drums in a project that's all recorded in different places. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Like I feel like that kind of sound, like for example, like Blood Incantation. their latest album is amazing, and the drums sound very natural and organic. It's because they all were in the same studio recording at the same time, so there's less editing to do. And unfortunately, that just is the case for, you try to make the best with what you have, but it's a lot less produced than like the previous albums,
Oh yeah,
because
definitely.
we definitely wanted to make it a point where the drum sounded better and more natural. Yeah.
Because the guitar tone, I absolutely love it. It's massive.
Yeah.
Um, and it's not cleaned up. For example, on a lot of the kind of palm muted riffs, you can hear the kind of the pick scrapes and everything. Those little things. I don't know. For me, that's always been one of the big appeals in 90s death metal, like hearing
Totally.
a real
Totally. Yeah.
performance.
You want it to sound alive. You want it to sound organic. I agree 100%. With the guitar, it's a lot easier to get away with that stuff, Yeah. But the drums are all recorded, at here in Cleveland at Mercenary Studios, and it was a marathon for sure. And they sounded good. It's just, like, just in death metal, that's just kind of the thing. Like, the drums have to sound overproduced for some reason. I don't remember the last time I heard an album except for Blood Incantation that the drums didn't sound that way.
Yeah. Because it seems to me there's still like the kind of the big problem with death metal, even on Effigy of all the way off Effigy of the Forgotten is bass drum versus the bass, right? It's always
Mhm.
that kind of balance that
Yeah,
seems to be almost impossible
yeah,
in death metal.
yeah. This and it's a lot of different ears uh giving feedback to an engineer, but he has his own ears, so it's always going to be a compromise.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but in terms of the kind of feminist lyrics have become a lot more prominent now within extreme metal. There are bands like Emasculator now coming up. There's even a lot of stuff. I've seen some stuff like East Asia. Do you think that you contributed the kind of shift towards the kind of lyrical themes in death metal?
I mean, we hope that we did contribute to some sort of positive change. We don't uh per se like to call ourselves feminist death metal, because at the end of the day, feminism is about equality. So, like, we don't want to have to like rub it in anyone's face. It's if you're good at what you do, you shouldn't be you shouldn't need to label yourself, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if it was a gimmick, we would have forgotten you in 2014 or 2015, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but the fact that we're still talking here, it's a good sign.
It's also the fact that we actually kept going. You have to keep going and doing what you love. There was a few bands before us that were like, there was a band from Italy called Putrefied Beauty. They were amazing. They were a huge influence for me. Those one like the MySpace days. Those were one of the bands that I found online, like looking for female death metal musicians, and I was blown away by them. If you never heard of them, check them out. I was also, like, blown away by another band from France, Gorod. Their first drummer. I forgot her name. It was a pretty name, but she was an amazing drummer. So for me, it was like, hell yeah, I can do it. She can do it. I can do it. And so, yeah, with bands that are coming up all around the world, that's awesome. Like, like Nervosa, Crypta, so great bands.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, for me, I always felt like the kind of the woman in extreme metal, who was, I mean, you didn't even know like she was a woman because she didn't care about that stuff. But the one that really kind of set the foundation for me, because people will say Angela Gosso, but Laurie Bravo,
Yeah,
bassist singer
totally.
of
Lori
Nuclear
Bravo
Death.
comes up all the time. Lori Bravo is huge, and also Joe Bench.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I just felt, have you ever like, I mean, I know Phil wrote the lyrics, but I always felt that their lyrics had a very interesting feminist twinge, but like not very overt, but really in the background, just kind of really well done. I'm not sure if you've read any of their lyrics.
No, I haven't, but I'll check it out.
Yeah, it's like I recommend one song. It's called Days of the Week,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's they basically they drug this girl who's gonna kill herself, and they rape and kill her. But it's the fact, that it's being sung by a woman gives it this kind of like unique twist, which is really interesting.
It's interesting how it changes everything when it's like our intro for Covenant. It's about that asshole preacher who raped a bunch of girls, and it's him like preaching and all that. But like coming from Castrator is a very different. Like if it was like that, like a a male death metal band, it would have a completely different effect.
Yeah, because King Diamond and Queensryche, they had songs about
Yeah.
priests abusing women, young women, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, but if it's us, it's a different understanding. It's
Yeah.
like like oh yeah,
So yeah, I mean, in that sense, representation does matter because it can completely change the meaning of something.
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. It's in every art form, in painting and music and in television and in filming and everything. It definitely matters.
Yeah. So before I let you go, I want to see what are your non-metal influences? What are like films, books, paintings that inspired Castrator?
That inspired Castrator or me, because
Well, both.
I have a lot of different outlets. I'm not just into metal. I'm an artist. So like I love art and that I can connect with. So if it's dark, like I love the early era Picasso. When he like his blue era. I
Yeah.
don't connect with his latest era for some reason, but like artists do have eras. It happens in music. It happens in every art form. I love Salvador Dali. In music, I am a huge classical music nerd. Love classical music. Listen to it all the time. Beethoven, Mozart, Vivaldi, Tchaikovsky, Chopin. I mean, any pretty much any classical, Renaissance, romantic, huge nerd. And then just I love Alice in Chains. I love like grunge '90s sadness, and L7 was huge too. Speaking of other female non-metal band. Oh my god, I love Pat Benatar.
Oh yeah.
Hell's for Children. Come on, it's like a metal song.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a lot of her stuff was always in both kind of worlds, pop and metal, weirdly.
Yeah, yeah. Pat Benatar, love her. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, like writers. I love Tolkien. Tolkien's like my favorite author or writer. I love to read about nature. So anything that has to do with nature. Yeah. Huge. I love nature. Like I go out for in the summertime, I'm outside all the time. Yeah, you have to keep a balance.
Yeah, I mean, because you can't be into death metal 24 hours a day,
No,
or
no.
otherwise, yeah.
Well, we're into death metal because we're angry. And anger is okay, but you can't be angry all the time.
Yeah. So, what are your plans for the future? With the album coming out and everything.
Hopefully we can tour a bunch. That's a goal. We love touring. Um, just keep writing, keep playing. I have a bunch of things brewing right now. I also did a collaboration in improv project called, well, the album's called Mama Killa, and it's coming out on July 11th through Burning Ambulance Records. And it was just like the owner of the label hired us to just get together in a room and record like the same day. Just we never played together before, so that was an awesome experience. And that you want to hear that because those drums sound huge and organic and beautiful.
Uh,
Yeah, it was a violin player, guitar player, and drums.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not surprised. It's your drum performance is very good. I think it's driving, and I think it was like uh the main thing, especially on the No Victim EP. It's like that's what I really took grabbed my attention, right?
Yeah, that EP was like the drums are brutal. Yeah,
Well, I love the
fast.
the guitar tone's perfect there. It's great
Yeah,
sounding EP.
thank you.
But yeah, but I think that's it. Any final words?
Make sure you check out Coronation of the Grotesque. It comes out August 15th through Dark Descent Records. We appreciate your support and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks. And yeah, only 150 copies of the vinyl I saw.
Only, well, that's through Decibel magazine. That's a
Oh,
special edition. It's like the red. It's a special edition. The dark design will have more like regular, and hopefully we do too in our Bandcamp. So
okay, awesome.
yeah,
All right, well, thank you very much, Carolina.
yeah. Thank
And,
you.
we hope to hear more from you soon.
Absolutely, same. Yeah, thank you for having me.